Hello and welcome back to another Wednesday live stream. Hello to all my wonderful viewers out there for our paint and chat. I hope you're all having a wonderful week, maybe working on some fun hobbies or some paint projects. With me, I've always got Disembodied Voice down below.
Hello.
And we've also got the painter Flo working here in the lower right corner. What are you working on today, Flo?
I am finishing up the last couple details of the Bloodthirster. Then I was going to work on some epic models.
Sweet. And then we have a very special, interesting guest today. I don't know that 90 minutes is going to be nearly enough time to get all the information that I'm looking to get out of him. But we have the very fascinating game developer, 3D modeler, 3D printer, massive wealth of knowledge. Please welcome me in joining Robert Lee. So, Robert, how would you want to be, or how would you, I guess, describe yourself at this point for our audience?
Game developer, senior technical designer right now is my day job, and then the pandemic got me back into 40K in a big way. And when I was getting back into it, I was looking at Space Marines and was like, okay, which chapter? And I liked all of them, and I was like, oh, well, Deathwatch has all of them, so I gravitated in Deathwatch, and that ended up turning into a whole side thing. So, yeah, then I got into Blender and the 3D printing and resin 3D printing, and it just exploded from there. I got people that are like bugging me to model stuff all the time, so it keeps me fresh and got me back into art after not doing art for so long.
Yeah, which is kind of a funny thing, right, of being in the industry. Oh, sorry, what were you saying, Flo?
I didn't say anything. That was you echoing.
What am I echoing? Well, bugger. Okay, well, cool. So, yeah, let's just sort of unpack that, because you had reached out to me several months ago, just, out of the blue, which I super appreciate you just saying you had this background in, game design, and then you're into 40K. What you said you got back into 40K, or you got into 40K for the first time during the pandemic?
Back into it. What my first experience was back in grad school. My game design professor, who worked on Rainbow Six, 3 Raven Shield, and a whole bunch of other titles, he was hardcore into Space Hulk. So part of our assignments in game design was we had to design a Space Hulk map and play test it and balance it and do all of that stuff. So that was my first foray back in like 2007 with 40K, and then from there got into like the lore. I think I'd been playing the video games like long before that, like Dawn of War, the very first game, maybe before that. So I'd always been into the video game side of things, but actual 40K tabletop was probably the pandemic era.
Gotcha. So, that seems to be a lot of people, like they're introduced to the game via a video game, most likely. They have such a huge footprint in that world. And then I
did get 2 boxes of Space Marines from Assault on Blackreach, and that was actually my first set, and that was back in probably 2009. So,
okay, did that just sort of sit on the shelf of, oh, I'll do this one day?
I built them. Yeah, I built them
open and do it right away.
Yeah, I built them, and then I was like, I don't know about painting because I'm kind of a perfectionist when it comes to that sort of thing. So, I really love the sculpting side of things, oddly enough. And when I do paint, people seem to think I do a decent job, so I'm happy with that. But I did take some classes at like Adepticon to do non-metallic metal and experiment around with different styles. But yeah, 40K, I didn't play the tabletop. I've always been more into like collecting miniatures and stuff.
Yeah,
I like the art side of things and the lore.
The lore is another big draw. Do you read much of the Black Library?
Yeah, I've actually got tons of audiobooks that I rip through at night. Right now I'm doing the Carcharodons, their books.
Oh yeah, the shark ones.
Yep.
Great. My friend Remlays is a big fan of the Carcharodons.
Yeah, Carcharodons.
Nice. Okay, so you've done some painting, but you don't. Do you still not really play much? Then you don't do tournaments or?
I do Kill Team. I like Kill Team because it's quick to set up. You can play a couple matches and you're not there like all day long and going through each thing. But I've got probably, I don't know, with what I've collected, I've probably got like 20,000 points in Deathwatch alone. So it's a little ridiculous what my collecting has turned into at this point. Some of it's 3D printed. A lot of it's actual models that I've just kind of sporadically picked up boxes and stuff over the years. But I kit bash the hell out of every single model that I build, so I'm a little
Okay. I was
going
to ask if it's like a model and then there's 3D printed stuff that you've added.
It's
to
a
it.
mix. Yeah, it's a mix. The actually, let me see if I can. I made these guys. The Intercession Squad, and like this is the level of detail that I go to. If you can see that on the camera, like he's got.
Focus.
I don't know if it's
No.
gonna focus. So he's got like
Hand behind
angel
his
wings, the
sword.
crown. He's got like bits on his back. If I put it in front of my face, yeah, my camera sucks. I need to get a better one. But he's got
You have to do
pieces-
the makeup video thing where you put your hand behind it, you know?
Yeah, it's actually on my Instagram. If you go to the Hunting Heresy Instagram, I've got videos that have like a full 360 of each guy, and there's like 20 some of them. So, and they're all from different chapters too. And I modeled the chapter pauldrons for all of them, so it's pretty cool. I do need to go back and do like the detailed bits.
Yeah.
But I got them like tabletop ready.
God, those ships that Flo just dropped on her mat, those look so much like, I don't know if it's that scale or whatever. They look so much like the little space fighters in the original Battlestar Galactica
Mhm.
show. What are they, the Vipers or whatever?
Yep,
Like,
yeah,
they
the
look
Vipers.
exactly like that.
Okay, so 3D printing then. So Hunting Heresy, that's I found an Etsy store. That's
Yep.
is that you?
Yeah, I use that as my gamer tag too. So if people ever want to play Dark Tide or anything, I'm Hunting Heresy on there.
Oh,
And then
sweet.
my son has Inquisitor Wayland as his tag too. So we tag team that.
Nice.
on
Oh my
Heresy.
god, that's awesome. All right, sweet. I'm gonna look that up because I do love me some good Dark Tide when
Yeah.
I'm not playing WoW.
I've almost got all of the weapons mastered.
Really? Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a few of them. I just love the las guns so much on my veteran that it's just hard to tear away from it. What's your favorite class in Dark Tide?
Usually Psyker, because
okay.
I was playing Dark Heresy for a while, RPG,
Mhm.
and I was an interrogator Psyker, and just using Smite on people and making their heads explode in the RPG was fun enough. But in the actual game, when I saw that happen for the first time, I was like, instant pre-order. I'm there.
Like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
doing that the whole time.
So I've got a build where I can like drop the bubble shield,
Mhm.
and then I can do
Yeah.
like 6 head bursts within 10 to 15 seconds. It's just like boom, boom, boom. You got a headshot. You got it, and just head.
You get a headshot, and you get a headshot, and
Yeah,
you get a
I
headshot.
use the electric stack for crowd control and stuff. It's pretty beastly. So, but I also like the zealot. I've got a zealot with the spiked crown, and
Nice.
I love using the hammers and just like crowd sweeping guys doing crowd control.
Yeah, I mostly do the Zealot. I do the Eviscerator.
Yeah,
I
that's
really
fun.
enjoy the
Yeah.
Eviscerator and Shotgun.
Yeah.
Well, they have that.
That's the mix.
Didn't the Thunderhammer or something get an update too? They put out some new two-handers for people.
There's a Maul. I've been loving
Mm.
the Maul. The Maul is really good.
Nice. I was gonna say hi to a few people in the chat. Hudson Lane, thanks for being here. Ring Non Roach, welcome. I don't know what all some new people in here. Paul, thank you as always for joining the chat, including on the secret back end there. So appreciate y'all. JP Got Rockets asks, have you designed a tabletop game?
No, oddly enough. I've worked with a lot of people who have done tabletop on the side.
Have you helped them with their miniatures by chance?
I've helped them play test.
Okay.
And, yeah, I did help them with minis. Scotty Everts, he was the original level designer on the original Fallout game, like the only level designer. And then Tim Kane was the designer for the project and director, basically. And I worked with both of those guys. So Scotty Everts had a Kickstarter a while back. He did the Pillars of Eternity board game. And everybody that was sitting at the time got custom dice that had like each of the games that we had worked on up to that point at the company. Each dice, like the D20, D6, D10, all of that had a different, the highest number was like the face of whatever the game was. So that was really cool.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. Okay, so they were in video games and also went over to tabletop board games. Do you see a lot of overlap with board games then?
Oh, they did it on the side. Like
Okay.
the cool thing about working at Obsidian is like you've got a lot of game nerds that are into all different kinds of stuff. Like you got the anime crowd, you've got the hardcore 40K group, we had a board game club that we would play every Wednesday night. And for a while, when Battlestar Galactica was out, we were playing the Battlestar Galactica board game, and that was a fun time. Like I was very good at being a covert bot and killing everybody. Like, oh, I'm so loyal. Don't vote me off the ship.
I've played that game. It's quite fun.
Rob's a good guy. He couldn't possibly look at him. He's being so nice. He's helping us.
Look, he's smiling. He's so friendly. Robots can't do that.
Just waiting for that one moment where you can flip the card and be like, oh, the ship just got the half of its health knocked out or something.
See, that doesn't work for me because I'm super nice all the time in a game, and I'm totally honest, and they always vote me off because I have to be the evil one.
Well, the nice thing about that game is like you could declare like round 1 and just go jump over to the Cylons. So
fair enough. My God.
But yeah, board games, like there was a good mix there. And I've actually been thinking about recently doing my own. I'm just not sure where I would want to take it because I wouldn't want to be too close to like 40K. And there's so many other board games that are coming out lately. I wouldn't want to be like, oh, that's just another Trench Crusade. So I'd have to figure out the thing.
Yeah, no, Trench Crusade is sort of like the new hotness, but it does seem like there's a lot of the new games that have these trends, right? I don't want to say flavor of the month because that's not fair. Like the miniatures tend to add more staying power than that. But you do see like these big blips come up with Kickstarters, and then it goes a while, and then there will be another blip of
like
whatever the new.
The real question is like, okay, 6 months from now, how excited are people still going to be about it? And if they are, then there you go. That's a game with some good sticking power, right? Like,
yeah.
But you just always almost want to wait and see before you go. Like deciding whether or not it's a blip or an actual like new addition to the landscape.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if I were to do a Kickstarter or something, I would want it to kind of play into what I'm already doing with Blender and customizing minis and stuff. I'd want to have it be highly customizable, have sculpting and 3D printing be a big piece of it. So like you're building your own army. And one of the things that really annoys me about 40K and why I don't like playing full 40K, there's so many different weapons, and I'm glad that in some ways they simplified it. Like Deathlock got long vigil melee weapon and long vigil ranged weapon. It's like, okay, thank God, that simplified things quite a lot. But there needs to be, I think, more of that, and have weapons be like, hey, this is obviously a laser weapon. Even MechWarrior, like when I was doing MechWarrior Online for a while, they've got so many different weapons. You could spend hours just customizing one mech in MechWarrior Online. It's ridiculous. And
in like, MechWarrior, that seems a little more appropriate, though, just because they are just a handful of complex machines.
Yeah, but even BattleTech, I'm like, okay, you've got your ER large laser. Like, it's just so overcomplicated with ranges and everything. I think I would just want to make something that's keep it simple. Make it so you can just memorize the rules and just like jump in, play, have fun. And ideally have it more narrative driven because I'm very much in a background of doing lots of narrative stuff. So
I'm still a very big fan of, I mean, again, obviously we came from War Machine, but when we first got into it, Mark II, I mean, it was the sort of thing where you're like, all right, here's the card. This is the unit. The unit's known for having these weapons.
Yeah.
And you can add a weapon attachment sometimes, but you know what their loadout is. And like the Winter Guard, like, oh, the soldiers, they have blunderbusses. Yeah. But if you want to give them rifles, well, that's actually a different unit. Here's this card. They have the rifle loadout, all that stuff. And so you don't have to sit there and like piecemeal. All right, that's one more point. All right, plus 2 points for every one of the, like, it took a lot of the kind of unnecessary like craziness out of it and just let them be a little more straightforward as to what they're equipped with. Yeah. And I liked that more. It sounds like you kind of prefer that in a way.
Yeah, I really like when they bring out like Space Marine hero sets and it comes with those cards. It like, here's your loadout. Here's what this character has, what the abilities are. It just keeps it very simple. You can have those cards on the table. And especially with Kill Team, it makes it very simple. You're not having to lug around a ton of books. So I'd really like to have a project that is very much, you can fit it in a box, you take it to your hobby store, and you can be playing in like 10 minutes. Whereas a lot of other games, like you're spending a half an hour with the setup And then by the time you're set up, you're like, okay, maybe the game's going to be over in like 15 minutes. And then, okay, it's frustrating. It's like, yeah, I want that speed to set up to be really, really quick. So.
Yeah, and I've been hearing good things about Kill Team for precisely that reason. Paul's a big fan of, I guess even the new edition of Kill Team especially is good to set up. So maybe something to get into at some point. Because 40K, it even takes a long time to lose.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. And the alternating activations, I think, is a really cool change that they made too. Like that was a big part of 40K, and I was like, wow, you can lose round 1 just because you had you had the guy rickroll you first round. That doesn't sound fun to me.
No, alternating activation I think is superior for tactical gameplay.
Yeah, if you want something that's responsive, and I mean, I know we talked to the people who designed like Infinity, if you're familiar with that game, and that is like you're always playing, like even on your opponent's turn, you can always be doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's designed to be like hyper involved, which is probably even a little bit more involved than I like, but it's still better than just I go, you go, you get the alpha strike like you're describing, and you just watch all of your stuff just get like dismantled in turn 1. You don't even feel like there's much reason to continue usually.
And it's always the new model that you've just painted and put on the table and excited to play. That always gets blown off on round 1. And you're like, oh, well, that's too bad.
Whatever you're excited about. That was a big problem in War Machine, but I feel like that was more of my meta liked doing that to me. So
yeah, Robert's totally.
Well, I wouldn't say it was just you. I'd say in general they just like doing that.
Andrew asks, as a game designer, how often do you look at large games with issues and know how you'd fix them? Like, I guess when you're playing them, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah, you just can't really avoid that as once you're a designer, like everything. I had the same experience once I got into welding and doing fabrication. It's like you just start seeing all the bones of buildings when you go look at places, like wandering around convention centers and stuff. You're like, oh, wow, that's an I-beam. That blah, blah, blah. You just kind of see the world differently. And it's the same thing for game development. Like once you're in that world and you see stuff like, God, Space Marine, there's a collision bug where you can like walk through a wall and hide and you're out of range of Tyranids. When I see stuff like that, I'm like, all somebody had to do is fix the collision mesh on that asset. That other people aren't thinking about that stuff though. But like as a technical designer, I would have to approach problems like that with like, okay, well, this is Unreal Engine. There is a navigation mesh that gets overlaid over all of the walkable terrain. And sometimes if you have things that are like too peaky, it'll cut a hole in that. And now you can't have enemies walk in that space.
Oh.
So as a tech designer, it's my job to go in and be like, and spot check those kinds of things, fix them. If there's anything with like gameplay objects, like if you've ever interacted with an object in like Helldivers or something, and it just doesn't work, that's the kind of thing where they're like, okay, Rob, go check that out. And like digging through the blueprint and seeing what's breaking. Like some projects, things would be so obtuse, like edge case. Oh, I did this thing, and I just happen to have this equipped, and then this state happened. So yeah, I've got to go in and like add all the error logging and things to get more information when shit breaks.
So that, I imagine a lot of that just goes into triage. Like a corner case like what you're describing can't be as high priority as something that, someone logs into a zone and now it crashes their PC.
Yeah, I'm sure they looked at that one little collision bug and they were like, whatever, only a small population is going to find that and they're going to laugh about it and just move on. So you get into situations where like once art is finalized, you can't necessarily like push certain updates. So it made sense to me. But
yeah. Well, I mean, we in this household we still play a lot of Warcraft, classic Warcraft.
Yeah.
And there's still so many like bugs in that game that they never bothered to fix. Specifically, like that mesh thing you're talking about. You always like, there's the known exploits of how you path mobs away from you and then evade bug back so that you never have to fight them and you can like shortcut your way to something. Yeah,
I used to play EverQuest back in the day and there'd be like special spots you could do levitation spell and get up to and then just like nuke.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, like 90% of Mage gameplay is just knowing if I stand here, then it evade bugs the mobs and they go away. So then I can round them up and AoE them down. It's
Or there'd be like zone boundaries, and you could like walk back across the zone boundary, and then they'd run away from you, and then you'd go back into the zone boundary and shoot them, and just keep ping ponging like that. There's so many goofy things that could happen in game development that. Yeah.
Well, and once you open it up to the wide market, I mean, that is.
Yeah, it's
do
like
a certain degree of play testing, but then the real play testing begins, right? When you've got thousands of a-holes, like gamer minds trying to like exploit stuff.
Yeah, frequently, I mean, QA internally is usually pretty good. Like they do some crazy stuff, and they send in some really annoying bugs where it's like, you had to do that, didn't you? But the team, the internal QA team, usually is not that big. Like we don't have hundreds of people internally play testing the game aside from the dev team and whoever are dedicated QA. Sometimes you'll get external QA, and that might boost you by like 30 people or something, but that's for a short period, like right before the game launches. And then once the game goes live, that's why we've got these day one patches and a series of patches from after that, because you just can't catch everything. Game worlds nowadays are so gigantic that it's like, especially RPGs, then MMOs are just a monster. So
yeah, it's kind of my favorite. Those are MMOs.
Yeah, give him a world to explore, and he's just gonna go wander around in it.
A shared world to explore. That's the key for me, anyway.
So I try to do a lot of mentoring and like talking through any technical stuff and like train people that are junior and intermediate to try to like get more visibility so we avoid pushing bugs forward. Yeah, I saw that comment and I was like, yep, yeah, I'm playing the BattleTech PC game lately just to get back into it for fun because my youngest son loves BattleTech and he actually picked out the Mad Cat as his favorite. Like I had all the mechs that I was building and painting and stuff, and or you don't build them; they're built.
I think the Mad Cat's one of the coolest looking, though.
Yeah, he like walked over and he was like, "That's my favorite." I'm like, "You had to pick my favorite." I'm like, "Here you go. You can play with it. Don't break it."
Yeah, it's just got such a cool look. Like it's kind of a.
There was a. This is what happens when you let kids play with BattleTech minis, and they.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's a locust, or it was a locust.
Poor little guy.
Yeah, I'll find the parts and glue them back together at some point.
I feel like when your dad can like 3D model and design all kinds of cool stuff, I feel like things break because they need upgrades more than an up.
Yeah, it's occasionally. Yeah, we're like, oh dang it, we got to go to the game store and replace that now.
Do you hang out much at the game store? Like, do you have much of a community there that plays, say, 40K or BattleTech?
There's actually we used to have one in Rossford. That one closed. We've got Toledo Game Room is huge, and they've got huge competitions. They're very heavy into BattleTech, Star Wars, and 40K / Kill Team. And they'll have like huge competitions, and they've got their whole Discord and everything.
Oh my gosh.
There's another place that's a coffee house called Dragon's Roost that's a lot smaller, but they have a regular 40K group and a ton of other games that they host weekly. And then the last one that's closest to me is Old School Gaming, and they're kind of in between size, but they have a ton of card games, regular 40K players. I think they've got competitions as well that they host every once in a while. So it's a pretty good community in Toledo.
Nice. I know Ohio used to have a really significant War Machine community back in the day too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure all of that's gone, but the Midwest and war games were definitely like hand in hand.
Yeah, this time of year with the weather just absolutely garbage. Like I got to wear a balaclava on my face because it's so bitter out.
Yeah.
Oof! I was wearing a T-shirt today.
Yeah.
We live in the desert, so we're all right.
You miss that about California this time of year, but
yeah, we get a little colder than California. Like we will get snow. We will get. In fact, we're right next to the foothills, so just on the other side of them is a proper little ski resort that's there. But yeah, it's not nearly as bad as you guys get it in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Nice. Still use Embryo. Is that a game engine design? A game engine? Embryo?
Where is it?
Some of the conversation. I don't know what Hudson's talking about. Him and Paul are having a conversation.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's that's the game engine for GEC and whatever they call the Elder Scrolls construction set. Yeah.
Oh.
That's what it's built on top of. But there have been so many evolutions since then. Like they integrated id Tech, the guys that make Doom and Quake, integrated their graphics, their whole rendering engine into it because they got acquired by Bethesda back a while back. And then they've like built more stuff on top of it. So it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But yeah, it was very buggy back when I was working on Fallout New Vegas.
So I've kind of wondered before, because like it seems like Unreal Engine has really taken over a lot of stuff, and it's I mean it's been around for a very long time. But how common is it that large production houses still just kind of build their own engine in house?
It's pretty rare, yeah. Unless they were like Volition, where they'd been using the same engine since the '90s. It's not common at all because the royalties for Unreal Engine are actually pretty reasonable. The contracts that they have. If you're indie, I think it's like 5% that you get per $1 million that you have to pay them, and that's only once you make over $1 million. So it's like you've made bank at that point. Or if you're a huge company, it's a per seat payment of like $1,800 a year or something. So if you're making games that are like selling 50 mil plus, and you're just making bank, like it's not a big deal to license an engine, and it's actually a lot easier to do than trying to develop your own thing from reinventing the wheel.
Right.
Okay.
But Call of Duty, I know, is based on, at least last I heard, it was still based on Radiant. Like they've been using the same engine since the first Call of Duty.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They're like, what? It works.
Yeah, I applied for that and I took their test and I was like, I hate how this looks. I do not like this engine. I don't want to work in that, because I've been working in like Unreal and a ton of other things that are just, I don't know. It wasn't for me at the time.
No.
So is Unreal pretty much just the thing now? I know the
most games, yeah.
There was the other one that I'm trying to remember
Unity
now.
is common, I thought, yeah.
Unity, I don't know about them as a company. Like I've seen like layoffs off and on. There's a lot of indies that use Unity for smaller games.
Yeah.
Mobile, it has good export tools. If you are really good at programming, and I think it's like C# is what's built into it. Unity is a good, I think their royalty stuff is much lower than Unreal. So, and they use it for global game jam. But as far as like the vast majority of huge AAA and quad A, they call it nowadays, games are usually Unreal. And you can kind of tell when you look at it just by the way the graphics are.
Yeah, well, yeah, it has a more in-depth graphic engine. And so I know that there's a lot of indie games that are a little more simplistic, I would say, that it seemed like Unity leaned into more. Like it didn't do as much, like, tons of dynamic like rendering and everything. It was kept it simple, but I didn't know if that was a very big part of the game development industry at all anymore, if it all just kind of more or less goes to Unreal nowadays.
I know that there's still projects that are using Unreal, because I was looking at different companies and they're hiring for Unity developers, but I know that the vast majority are Unreal.
Have you ever played Phasmophobia?
No.
It's interesting. It's kind of an amazing game, but it's definitely a very different. It's not like Dark Tide. It's not an adventure game. You're just like, it's one of those like quirky indie games where you're a part of a team that goes into like identify ghosts in a haunted house. Yeah. And you get these tools and you can die, which is why I never leave the van.
I thought it was a game where you just sit in a van and other people go into a house.
Only if you watch Miranda play. She's gotten better. She's gotten better.
I have gotten better. Paul likes to go antagonize ghosts. And it's, it works out. We just balance each other. But yeah, so
I'm the middle person.
I've never played it, but my favorite part about the game is still that you go in and you literally risk dying in a house to like a horrible ghost. But if you identify it and get out, you'll earn a paycheck of like $38. It's just like, oh, that was worth it.
Well, and I don't know what something like well, I can't remember any of these. They're all the popular games. So there was the scavenging in space game. hell am I talking
Oh,
about?
is that the one that you guys streamed?
Gosh darn it.
Right?
Lethal Company.
Lethal Company, Among Us, like all these small games. I don't think they're being built in Unreal because they're all like these 2D things, you know, like 2D has never left us. It's kind of funny with like the advent of Steam, how many people still play 2D games because of, well, okay, that's not true. Lethal Company is a 3D game, but it's just so rudimentary. Like nobody cares. Like, I guess what I'm going after is, it seems like graphics are not the big thing anymore, right? For a video game to do well.
I would say once you leave AAA, then they're not a big deal anymore.
True.
I think the big AAA and, as you say, quad A, I think cutting edge and introducing new graphics is still like the order of the day. But I think anything below that, yeah, I think like it's almost like it's fun to have like weird retro style graphics or, you know, just kind of low quality graphics are almost funnier. It's almost the way, you know, if you go into Photoshop and you really polish up a meme, it's not nearly as funny as if it's just cut out and like Microsoft Paint.
Like horribly cut out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as long as you get the art style right, as long as you have a cohesive art style and it looks interesting. Yeah, as a designer, like I tend to err on the side of simplicity rather than trying to chase that dragon of the graphic fidelity, because I've seen it just burn people out when it comes time to optimize the game.
Oh God,
that becomes a nightmare. Like, hey, we got to get this game to run at 60 FPS. Guess what? It's running at 15. Well, guess what we're going to be doing for the next 3 months overtime?
Straight with almost no sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, been there. Yeah, there were periods where I was 6 weeks straight, 6 days a week, 12-hour days. It sucked.
No, that sounds deeply unpleasant.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Hogan's Heroes, I don't know.
Oh, I saw the comment about Fallout 76. Funny thing, when we were working on Fallout New Vegas, we literally got handed Fallout 3, and we had all of the city assets and interiors and stuff for Fallout 3. And then later on, at a certain point in development, we had to go back and retexture everything so that it looked like the West Side. Yeah, looked like Vegas. And then also added our own tile sets and stuff on top of that.
There you go. I remember
not surprised me at all that you can spawn in Fallout 4 characters in Fallout 76. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Because like, hey, why hand off an engine that has no art assets? How are you going to do blockouts? Like, it made it really quick. That's why we were able to get New Vegas done, the core game, in like basically a year of development after a short pre-production period. And then each DLC was 3 to 6 months. So it was hot and fast.
Sometimes you get that. I remember, especially because you said Fallout New Vegas was on the heels of an engine that already existed, right? On a game that already existed. So you see that with things like, I mean, I'm a big fan of like the Legend of Zelda games. And so you had Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask was built on that same engine like a year later, and pretty solid game. And they did the same with Tears of the Kingdom on top of Breath of the Wild. So if you already, it's almost like you get to go back in and perfect what was already there that you didn't get to do the first time.
Yep.
It's like you actually get to apply everything you learned on the last project instead of like, all right, and from scratch again. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's super handy, especially when you've got things that you made that were new gameplay and you don't want to have to redo all of that scripting all over again. And there might be things that you want to go back and fix, like, oh, all doors had this quirk, and now you can just fix that thing instead of rewriting all of the scripting for all the doors. That was another funny thing about that engine. Like, if people were junior and they didn't know what they were doing, you could like make a change in a certain way, and then it would affect all doors in the entire wasteland and break them. Whereas if you saved off a copy and like had a unique door, you wouldn't have that, because it would like inherit. Unreal has a similar thing where like you've got the top level parent, and then you've got children objects that go down from that you can edit, but they all inherit that parent actor's properties. So if you save something broken on that parent actor, it just breaks everything else down the chain.
Yeah.
There were times on Elder Scrolls Online when somebody would do something like that and they would break everything. It's like, oh, this is a live product. Everybody is working live in Hero Engine. So everyone has to go hands off. And we're just going to roll back a couple changes, it's going to take us a few hours to do this, but yeah, go get a coffee or a lunch or something. So yeah, it's very much be careful. Don't break the thing.
God,
There
it sounds like
was-
such a stressful environment at times.
Oh yeah, yeah. When people would do that and you're like on a deadline, yeah, it would get very, very scary very quickly.
My God. What did Paul say? It's good to get assets to use for blockouts, but once it's ready to go, anything completely unused should be taken out. Just adds
Absolutely.
space to the game.
That's why frequently you'll see super funky colors on those assets so that people can spot check it in the world and be like, okay, yeah, that purple thing needs to be pulled out. Otherwise, people are going to see it.
Hey, look, that guy's hat is a cube with
Yep.
with a checkerboard pattern on it.
And that's why they call it gray block when we're blocking out levels from scratch. They call it gray block because literally we'd be using gray blocks, what they call primitives, like
Yeah.
rectangles, spheres, squares.
Yeah. Well, I do or teapots apparently. So I do 3D modeling. I've done it since the 90s, and so I just remember like primitives are all of what you'd think, right? Like pyramid, square, circle, and teapot. Like how that's a primitive shape, I don't know, but it's like it's the first, I guess the first not just sphere or whatever that was ever made. So they're like, that's also a primitive. It's just sort of a legacy thing.
Remember that for 3ds Max.
Yes, that's what I use basically.
Yeah. You use Blender though. Is that am I hearing
Yeah,
that right?
I do now because Blender's free. There's lots of tutorials all over the internet, and there are so many really good plugins to speed things up that I picked it up. It has a deep learning curve though.
Yeah. Well, it's the only reason I haven't walked up to it yet is I do 3D modeling as I don't know what you'd call it, as the duct tape and baling wire of everything else I do, but I'm not like a primary animator or anything. And so it's like, I've opened Blender, I've downloaded it over the years, I've looked at it, it's just been like, ooh, just sort of back away slowly.
You open it, you look at it, you're like, no, we'll go back to the other one. Maybe next time.
It's got weird controls and navigation, and then the shortcuts are also weird for me. I haven't gotten used to like hitting the space bar and knowing what buttons to press, but I can navigate my way around.
My little brother got really good at it. He started in on Blender when it first came out, and
Wow.
he's made a few indie titles that are available on Steam. So he's mostly done that. But yeah, no, Blender seems like it's become such a powerful tool, and I guess primarily because it's free. Because before that, what you paid for 3D Studio Max, I think a seat is like $3 or $4 grand a year.
Oh, it's like
Oh,
at the lowest, it's like $1,800 every year, sort
Yep.
of thing. It's not cheap.
Yeah, so for super simple stuff like the paint racks behind me, I use Tinkercad for that because it's super quick. I could use Blender for it, but Tinkercad is just so dirt simple.
Well, that's the browser-based one, right?
Yep. Yeah, I could do it anywhere. Like I don't have to worry about installing something. It saves all my stuff in the cloud. So if I'm just doing basic shapes and stuff I'm going to run in FDM, not resin, and I'm not worried about like super high detail stuff, then I'll just use that. But if I'm doing like Warhammer stuff, I use Blender for sure.
Okay. Do you ever use ZBrush for any of that stuff?
No, not yet. Because I'm not doing characters yet. It's
Okay.
mostly bits, upgrades, backpacks.
It's all hard body sort of stuff.
Yeah, hard surface modeling. So like pauldrons, guns, swords, all that kind of stuff. Because I very deliberately, when I heard that like tournament rules said that you wouldn't be able to use full 3D resin models and stuff, I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to do upgrades on my guys and use an actual Games Workshop model, because that's when you start getting into trouble, is if you're doing torsos and legs and all that kind of thing. So eventually I want to get to that point where I'm doing full characters, but probably for my own game, so I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So you sent me this image. Is this the paint rack that you designed?
Yeah, that's the one for Pro Acryl.
Yeah. Good company, by the way. I like Pro Acryl.
Yeah, I love Pro Acryl. When I used that at Adepticon when I took the non-metallic metal class, and then I was just sold. It paints so creamy, so smooth. Wet blending, I was doing wet blends super fast with non-metallic metal.
Oh yeah. Well, so we know Jason, who owns the company.
Yeah.
He'd go to Valhalla with us for years, but he'd talk about like what they would use to grind the pigments and everything, and they would go like 3 times as long grinding them as everyone else to really. And then the pigment count for the medium was much higher so that they could just get these really, as you described them, like creamy.
Yeah, it doesn't separate out nearly as bad. Like, let me get I actually bottled my Citadel paints. Like, you can see this Reichland Rekarth flesh. And then I'll grab the Pro Acryl. And you've got, like, you can see the striations in the Citadel where it's all separated out and turned into garbage.
Yeah.
And then this, like, you know, it's still solid color paint. And they've been sitting on the shelf the same amount. This one has actually been used less. This one's been sitting less time. I mean, longer or whatever. But
yeah.
If you put it on, I've got one of those lab locking paint mixers. You like just put the thing into it, it locks like that, and then it just shakes it around. It'll mix both of them up, but
it's like a very, very miniature sized machine like you have at Lowe's.
Yeah.
It shakes your house paint.
Yeah, I might be able to grab it and show you. I got it on Amazon. I'll plug it.
That's right, Hudson. Grinding pigments in a mortar pestle is so 2,000 years ago.
I've made my own paint using stuff from like nail polish paint because I wanted some really cool
enamel.
Iridescent paints because I wanted to paint on canvas and do something that was really, really.
Well, now how do you do that? Because nail polishes are enamels, right?
No, these are just pigments. It's not the polish or anything. All you do is you get whatever pigment you want, and then you get a big ass bottle of whatever medium you want, and that's how you make paint. The manufacturers want you to believe that, oh, it's this chemical process. It's like, no, you go to any fine arts store and you get a medium and you just go for the properties you want. If you want it to be matte, you use a matte medium. If you want it to be gloss, use a gloss medium. If you want it to be sticky, use a gel medium. Like there's so many different things you can do, but this is
you were describing the fingernail polish stuff.
And then it jiggles around. Like
for iridescence for nail polishes, they do have powders that you can use.
Okay.
And you can like
bags. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I thought you were describing like just the polish itself. I was like, there's a way to extract the.
Oh, not that.
Yeah, for nails in particular, usually you'd put like your color on, and then you put the powder on, and then you would paint over it with top coats. That way, it would create the iridescent layer and be sealed in.
Yeah,
so that's what you'd be using for that. And not because I've ever done it for my nails, but because I've looked it up because it looks cool.
Okay. Well, my nail painting skills are very, very noob. I'm at very low levels.
I mean, mine are too.
So I got a bunch of bottles and just made my own paints. And then,
okay.
Yeah, that's all just matte medium and iridescent pigment.
Oh, those are cool.
So, I mean, this would cost a ton of money to buy.
Yeah.
Or whereas I spent probably like $10 on a pigment set and then about the same for a huge bottle of matte medium.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I can put my canvas and be like, swirr, and do all kinds of interesting color patterns and stuff.
No, even Hobby Lobby, you can go and get big bottles of medium and stuff like that. Like I've gotten medium before. I didn't know that that you could buy pigment as readily as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, finding regular pigments is a lot harder for me. Like I haven't been able to find those as easily. But
well, that has a lot more dangerous chemicals possibly in them also.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I know if you look at like fabric dyes, the powdered ones, they're more that they're strict pigments that are true colors, and you have to have a respiratory like mask and everything on for those because they are so toxic.
Yeah, and it seems like Pro Acryl is a lot more single pigment too, which is another reason I like them. You can mix, and a lot of the paints like Citadel will have 2 or 3 different pigments in it, and if you mix colors, it'll turn brown or gray.
Yeah, that was one of the big things Jason had mentioned, is that he specifically designed the line around being able to mix any color with any other one.
Oh,
and
interesting.
It won't change the texture because you could get that pigment change, and it won't have that chemical impact, like you said.
That's my main problem with Citadel is it can be very gritty. So
well, that's the problem that I had. Like I really like the Fanatic or the Army Painter Fanatic paints for some of the brightness you get. or like the orange and the yellow. But I've noticed that if you mix the yellow with anything, it does have like a white in there in the likes. So it will actually gray out any other colors you use. So if you're mixing with a yellow, I would definitely just go with the Pro Acryl.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Or
yellows
put the vibrancy underneath and then
Yeah, it
paint
makes
over
sense.
it.
It just dawns on me we should have Jason on the show. We'll
Yeah, I
invite
know.
Rob back too, so they can talk tech on it.
just nerd out.
That's
Oh
right.
my god, for sure. I need to get more people. I need to make more community or group guests because I'd love to hear that cross
Yeah.
chatter. Actually,
JP
Yeah.
mentioned Turbo Dork. You got to be careful because the old Turbo Dork paints that have been sitting on shelves for a long time, they turn into like a paste, and you have to like. I actually made a mixer for my Dremel so that I could mix them up because they got so separated out.
Like a little tiny paint mixer that
Oh my
goes
God.
in there.
Yeah. It's literally
That's
a coat hanger.
fantastic.
It's a coat hanger that I bent around into a loop so it'll fit in the tiny bottle.
yeah.
I just crank on my Dremel and then I put a little bit of primer or
Thinner in it.
Medium in there.
medium in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to put water. I don't want to thin it out and change the qualities. I just want it to be like, you know,
Want
The
to
medium
liquid.
yeah.
is good.
That's awesome.
So JP says that there's a lot of blended pigment colors in the Pro Acryl line, but I would still think that well, maybe not the pigments, but whatever the medium is still like consistent between them, right?
Yeah.
I haven't had any issues when mixing any of the Pro Acryl colors. Is basically what I was saying though.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
when using the Fanatics, yes, the pigment is amazing. The color is amazing when you first put it down, but if you mix it with anything else, you can end up making more of a pastel kind of color instead of keeping that vibrancy. I've not had that issue with Pro Acryl.
Yeah.
And I did get like almost the entire set for Christmas, so I haven't come across any issues yet. But yeah, I haven't used all the colors yet.
No, the different paint lines are primarily for convenience. I mean, for the most part, if I'm looking for a specific shade, I don't necessarily care the brand if it's the right color.
Yeah. I do love Turbo Dork for like BattleTech cockpits. If you're looking for that iridescent, really vibrant rainbow color, it's fantastic. I did a Pinewood Derby car for my son and used the purple green color swapping one, and it just looked amazing. You just got to prime it black, oddly enough.
Yeah, I could see
Yeah,
that.
for all of those, I think you have to prime them black because the iridescent just shows up so much better on that dark color.
Now, on something like that, do you have to airbrush it on just to keep that smooth surface?
That's what I did. Yeah.
Okay.
It comes out really nice when you airbrush it too.
That's the one thing that I have not yet invested in that I would like to invest in is getting an airbrush, but I do have to get a ventilation table and stuff like that if I were to do that because I would live in an apartment. There's not a place I can just go to and
Yeah, that's
airbrush.
I feel like that's something all three of us need to just bite the bullet and just get airbrushes.
Just buy.
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't too expensive. It was like maybe I think under $100. And
Yeah.
I just got some drawers at Walmart, so all my thinners and stuff that I made myself are in here, and it's a nice
Just
setup.
trying to represent Liquid Death right now. There's a kickback on this video. Best marketing campaign I've ever seen in my life, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, once I got an airbrush, it was like, oh my God, this is priming and it's so much faster. But it's just annoying when it clogs. I was loving Vallejo Mecha paint for the longest time. And then I was using the same bottle for so long that some of the paint was drying inside the bottle. So I'd go to prime and it would clog up. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So finally I went in and used my mixer that I've made in the bottle, pulled the mixer out, and there was like this huge honking goober, like stringy bits of paint that had run down and dried inside the bottle. And I was like, oh yeah. So
I think I found the problem.
Yeah, so I transferred that into smaller bottles. And yeah, I had the same problem with a couple other brands that I bought, but yeah, it's been nice. I started out with just one of those battery powered airbrushes like this. You can find them on Amazon for super cheap.
Yeah.
It's a good way to get started. But after a while, the air pressure is not strong enough. So I ended up bumping up to a Badger, Patriot 105. And that's
I heard Badger is really good.
Yeah. Nice
Yeah,
work.
they're up in Chicago actually. Like we've been to the little factory warehouse thing
Yep.
like years ago.
Yeah, it's been good. Oddly enough, I then got a Reaper Vex, which is literally a Badger. And
Oh.
this trigger and all of the parts for the Reaper Vex fits on my Patriot. So I ended up putting a Reaper trigger on the Patriot because I just like the feel of it a lot better. It's a little knurled.
Yeah.
By the way, it's hard for me not to reply to this comment with none of your business.
I know, right? I know.
Because you know the name. But no, the answer to your question though is that there's a fan and it pulls the air through, but there's a filter. So the air is fine. It's just you have to filter out the paint particles so they're not just going around your room, right? So it just kind of creates a little bit of a breeze as you're working just into this filter. And it's like a big filter like you know put over your vent or put in your vent for your air conditioner at your house.
Yeah, it's like 16 by 8, I think, in the one that I've got. It's pretty big. Yeah. It's actually a 2-stage filter. There's like a blue and white that's kind of rough on the outside, and then there's a thinner filter behind that.
Oh, okay.
You got a whole pre-filter. But yeah, it's got enough air pressure that it like sucks all the particles out. You don't breathe anything. So it's been super nice. I've just got mine pointing at the wall, and it hasn't painted the wall yet, so I know I'm okay.
There's no dumb questions here. We'll answer anything we know the answer to. It makes us feel smart.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to ask is what type of resin you like to use for printing, because there are so many different resins. They have so many different properties. I know that brittleness is a lot of trouble that people have when it comes to printing. So
this feels like a good way to introduce these.
Yeah. So I started out with Elegoo, and my first printer was the Mars 2 Pro, and that was a great little workhorse, but it has a tiny build plate. And I got to the point where I had people sometimes ordering as many as like 200 pauldrons because they're building an entire custom army with a custom logo. And you can't fit that many on a Mars 2. So I then bumped up to the Saturn, and then the Saturn 2, and then a Mars 3 Pro. I just kept going up from there, and I stopped at the Saturn 3 Ultra. That's been great. But I use Elegoo ABS like 2.0. I think there's like a 3.0 now. But when I started out, the ABS like was super brittle. It would just snap. So I experimented around, and there is a resin called Tenacious by Soraya Tech that is super flexible. And I found out that if you mixed a ratio of 15% Tenacious to 85% ABS like, I did tests and I was bending spears like completely in half, and they were not snapping.
Oh wow!
So, yeah, Tenacious is wonderful stuff. Yep.
Because how does that work with detail? Like I always hear that's a trade-off, right? It's like
a little bit, a little bit. But if you go in and you're really meticulous, you're using 99% IPA, you're using a soft bristle toothbrush, and you're brushing your stuff clean and dipping it, you can get it clean.
Oh wow, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, but if you rush through the process, like I've got, I started out with a 3-stage process. I would have one bucket of what I call dirty IPA that would be literally gray because it's been used so much, and then I'd have my clean IPA that's like pristine, and that would be to get the rest of the stuff like really super clean. And then I would have a bucket of water to wash that off real quick, and that parts came out just like spick and span, super dry. And then I would let them fully dry, get everything off before I would go and cure them. Where you run into problems is if you quickly rush through the IPA and then you immediately go in and cure it, then you'll notice that there's all this like half resin that's crusted in and hardened up, and it might be like semi-clear in cracks and crevices. So you definitely want to try to let stuff fully dry before you cure if you can. The cleanest IPA you can, because it might look clean, but if it's cloudy, like you could still have stuff in it, especially if you're using clear resins. That's where it gets really tricky to know when you need to swap it out. But the nice thing, talking about ventilation, ABS like 2.0 from Elegoo does not have much of an odor. It doesn't have VOCs. I've got a VOC meter in my my room. And It's actually the IPA. When I pull stuff out to clean it, and I've got the IPA vats open, that's when the VOCs jump up. So that's when you got to be careful.
Oh,
Oh
interesting.
man, yeah. Whenever DJ is cleaning stuff,
Oh,
like it's so bad.
Yeah, IPA reeks. It's terrible. So I'd like to do an addition to my house and have like a dedicated lab that has like vent to atmosphere, but then I'd probably piss off my neighbors. They'd be like, "Why does that stink?" They're like, "Oh."
Well, just to be clear for everybody out there, IPA, I assume, is isopropyl alcohol.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Although I do sometimes drink IPA when I dunk my IPA.
Right. It's like that's what kept going in my head. I kept hearing IPA.
Yeah, don't use that for cleaning your models.
Yeah.
I mean, you can, I guess, but don't expect
If
good
it's water
results.
washable, that might work. Not the stuff I use though.
Paul says he uses a water wash resin. Anycubic HD has some bend to it, not too brittle. Yeah, I mean the resins seem to be the trick here.
I've heard some of the water washable reeks though. I have a friend that was using. I don't know what brand he was using, but he had to keep it in his garage because it was just too bad. But I haven't tried a lot of that, so it'd be nice to know if there's a water washable that's not just completely awful. Because that I could just cure the bucket and dispose of it a lot easier. Whereas with the IPA, you can let it evaporate off, and it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so on the topic of 3D printing, you've designed lots of pauldrons. What got you started where you're like, okay, I do 3D modeling and here's some custom stuff for my minis and my friends now?
Yeah, it just naturally progressed. I got back into Deathwatch shortly after building. I painted that whole set of Assault on Blackreach. And
yeah.
There I was like, well, I think I want to do a different army. And I got into Deathwatch because I was like, I can't decide between all these chapters. I think they're all cool. Plus there's all the successors. And I like went down a wiki rabbit hole reading about all of those. So that got me into Deathwatch. But then Deathwatch at the time did not have a lot of options for aftermarket pauldrons. And I didn't want to have to deal with decals. I sucked at decals at the time. And I was like, that's going to be a nightmare. And plus there weren't a lot of people doing like Deathwatch decals either at the time. Now at this point I've found a bunch, but
only since you made them.
Yeah. But that's really what got me into it, because there were only a couple places that were selling pauldrons, and I really did not like how chunky, like thick, the logo was like sticking way off. And I was like, no, that's not up to my standards. So I got into modeling them myself. And at this point I've modeled over 230 chapters. So
oh, cool.
This is really cool looking.
I need to put Brett in touch with you.
Oh, those are great.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks incredible. And then you also made, I think, custom font. And there's your organizational stuff.
Yeah, when that Angels of Death animation came out, and I was like, oh, that type, the font that's on the pauldron, I haven't seen that around. Like, there's only a few artworks that I'd seen over the years that had anything resembling that. So when that cartoon came out, I was like, shit, I'm gonna see how to make my own typeface. And I made the typeface, and I started 3D printing models with that. So the shield that slays on Instagram, he's actually got a guy with one of those pauldrons that's based on another piece of art that had like spikes on it and skulls all along the rim. So there's a lot of stuff that I see in Warhammer art where I'm like, well, that was an order that I sent out to somebody. I did a little surprise underneath the coaster. So when they peel the coaster back, they're going to see that and be like, oh, hell yeah. I've got a laser kit, like the laser behind me above my head.
Oh, what kind of laser do you have?
It's an F1. I actually have been doing some pipe cups. So I've got this Dark Tide design that I did that's on my Instagram.
Oh, neat.
And then it has all of the text for the splash screens when you're waiting for missions.
Yeah.
Little quotes. That's what all of that text is there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You can't really read it because it's so blurry.
Tiny. It's more like a lithograph.
Yeah, it only takes 2 hours to laser that design, but it looks amazing when it comes out.
Yeah.
I did my gym bottle that I take to the gym. I did the same thing too.
Do you get comments on it? People
yeah. People are like, where the hell did you get that? And I'm like, I made it.
Make me one. That's the next thing.
Yeah, usually.
Yeah. I don't get that very often, oddly enough. But
Oh.
I did laser etch both my sons' water bottles for school. Like they've got their name on it and like Celtic knotwork wrapped around it. Done it for a few other family members too. But the thing with laser is like I don't know what the hell to charge. Like if I was to sell a Yeti bottle on Etsy, what the hell would I charge for that? That's the where I'm at right now. I'm like
I mean, I run into that problem with painting even.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, do I charge by the hour? Do I charge like who knows? So
I think you just set an arbitrary price and go with whatever you feel comfortable with, and just see what the market says.
What sells lower the price until somebody buys it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pretty
I mean,
much.
I kind of feel like that's
Oh, and I did laser.
I like Hudson Lane's comment there.
Yeah, I did a dry brush palette too. So
Oh wow.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Ooh.
That's just what on MDF or
yeah, it's just an MDF palette. It was like whatever Artist Opus was using. I bought the same stuff and was like, oh, I'll just make my own thing. So
Yeah, for dry brushing and stuff. Or
and I made smaller versions too. So I've got like that size and then that size. So this would be like if you're going to go on a trip and you still want to have a little dry brush palette, you could still do it.
yeah,
Just on
the last
train.
couple of streams I've been using the one that Tommy and Miranda gave me from. Was it
Yeah.
Nova? You
it
guys
was
got
at
it?
Nova, yeah. It was
Yeah.
the game
I've
in
just been
place.
using your guys' one you guys gave me, but it's got like a fantasy set up in the background. It's kind of crazy, but I use it a lot. I use all of my dry brushing and
They're really handy.
palettes. I use them a lot.
Yeah.
But I
They
mean,
feel
I'm always
fairly
painting,
new.
So
Like those seem to have popped up in the last few years, or at least for me. I hadn't seen them before. Before then, it was corrugated cardboard box. They had a rough enough texture on them that it would work for me anyway. But yeah, I like the new ones. They're a little more fun.
I mean, heck, I used a paper towel for the longest time. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that blew up my own painting skills was that time when I went to Adepticon. I took a class or a few classes from Banshee, and one of the classes that he had was mixing, and it was amazing. He literally just used a paper towel and a plastic plate as his wet palette, and he mixed
Wow.
so fast that it blew my mind. He was painting a bust, just this face, and he was bouncing back and forth and like mixing intermediate colors, and I was like, I need to speed my ass up because I'm so slow and meticulous. I was like, this dude is just, he could paint 100 of what I paint in the same
Oh, wow.
time.
That's the way I feel about most painting. I am so slow and meticulous.
So that really like sped my practice up quite a bit because I was like, okay, I don't need to sweat a couple drops of paint if it's going to dry by the time I use it all up. Whereas if I follow this practice, I'll use a heck of a lot more of it. I'm going to get stuff done quicker. And it'll just add a lot more color too.
nice.
Well, what is it like? Time is worth more than the cost of paint.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
It's interesting because for that reason, the larger models are actually much faster for me because you don't have as much like meticulous detail that you're bogged down by, like taking the time for all of the larger spaces that you spend time painting and blending out and things like that. Those are actually the faster and more fun things to do.
Yep.
Yeah. And then there's the matter of storing it all. Although I will say, I do love how accessible fabrication has become over the last 10 years with 3D printing. Oh, I know, Jeremy. I'm sorry. YouTube is trash. But
I was just going to take this moment to boo YouTube a little bit and then
Yeah.
go back to it. I really wish they would send out notifications.
I mean, I don't know that Rumble did either, in fairness. But,
Oh, wow.
you know, fabrication, just that you can just make so much stuff. It's my favorite thing to look up on YouTube is tutorials on how to make stuff. And now we're here. And you got really into, I mean, I guess you're one of the backers for this Tixarly factory.
Oh yeah, Tixarly Factory. Yeah, they had the Cube Pro recently, and
Oh,
that's what's like directly behind my head. You print. Oh god, it's probably like 6x6 cubes.
6 inch by 6 inch, like
Kind of about 6 inch. So it's kind of a weird size, but it's handy if you want to like grab them and take them on the run. Like you see the one with the handle, you can like
Yeah.
have your own paint boxes and stuff.
Oh, DJ was interested in those.
And they just sort of slide together, right? Like that's.
Yeah, they do. You really got to configure your printer though to be to have the extruder set up right, so you don't over extrude. Because if you're over extruding, they won't slide all the way together. But once you've got that set, like
or they will once.
Yeah, yeah. I got mine locked together, and I tried to get them apart once, and I was like, okay, never mind.
Oh,
Configuration. But there's a lot of cool options. They support a bunch of different brands for paint, and they've even got like you can print display cases. So I started using that because I like my stuff to go vertically. I had this. I relegated this. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I've got one of these things. You see how humongous this is? It's that it wastes that much space on your desk. And I cut that in half with this this Kickstarter. So now I've got so much more space. It just reduced my stress level.
I feel like you just get 3 more of those and you cut out the little front part and use them to build a stadium for Blood Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, you could. Just use old used up dropper bottles as audience members, put a little head on it.
That's right. I still love, as just this random thing that's always stuck in my head. I still love, you watch the making of the episode 1 of Star Wars, like the prequel. Yeah. And when they're doing the pod races, some of the shots were like, it was an actual model of the stadium, but the scale of it was such that all the people on it are literally just the heads of Q-tips. And so they'd put some paint on it and slide it in there, but they'd hang down underneath. So you could like run your hand by and the crowd would like do a wave.
That's awesome.
I was like, all right, that's pretty ingenious. I love that. That, and always remember that they've shot a lot of practical stuff for the waterfalls on Naboo. And you're like, well, water doesn't miniaturize, so it's literally just salt. We're just pouring salt down this thing, and it looks like a real far away shot of a waterfall. I was like, man, that's genius.
What paint handle is that?
It's 3D printed. I actually don't know where DJ found it. It's actually not fully attached yet, so I have to be careful. It does pop right off. Yeah, so what's nice about it is that you twist it properly. If you twist it, it releases.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually got a spiral design on the inside, so where you twist it, it will actually tighten around.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's the one I saw on Instagram not long ago, that like you just turn the thing and it tightens.
Yeah, I was wondering, actually, when you were doing, I just assumed there's a rubber band inside or something to make them springy.
No, we had ones that had rubber bands, but I mean, the rubber band would get in the way, or the rubber band would snap, and then your mini would go flying. And so you actually printed this out, which is great for smaller bases. I don't know that they have one that's going to be big enough for like 60 millimeters and stuff like that. I think you'd have to scale it up quite a bit for that. But I mean, it was working great for this because the Epic Minis are a lot harder to hold on to. They don't have as much of a base to actually grip onto.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's the beauty of 3D printing. You can just scale it up and have a bigger.
Yeah.
I prototyped this. It's magnetic, so you just push it around.
Ooh.
And it just pops right off. And then
I've always been really bad at using handles. I tend to just hold it by hand because I move them around so much, and where I want to grab it and like how I want to position it is a big deal.
Yeah, for me, this one, it was just, it printed out. I've got XL size hands, so it like printed out big enough that, yeah, it just
it's cool.
Feels good in my grip.
You're the exact opposite me. I have I have hands that are the size of like a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
So holding on to things has always been difficult.
Yeah, so I'll probably experiment around with like different profiles and shapes because I do like the Citadel, the small handles.
Yeah, those are with the spring in them that hold the.
Yep. Yeah, but I would just want it to be magnetic, so I can slide the thing around and change position.
Yeah.
But you have like a ball bearing in here.
It looks like, yeah, it's just a humongous like 3/4 inch steel ball. And I just super glued it in there. That's what that little goop is that's coming up the side.
Oh, okay, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I was trying to understand that earlier because I was like, okay, so does the model just really like move around on
it? It stays on there. It's on there hard. Cup. Yeah.
Sippy cup.
That's great.
We all need our amazing accessories. No, vertical storage. Storage is always one of the hardest things with miniatures. I mean, do you end up displaying a lot of your miniatures? I think you have a display case.
Yeah, I've got one of those IKEA display cases behind me. I've actually added shelves to it, so you might be able to see right there is a shelf, and then I've got some smaller vehicles up top. I just got some acrylic and cut out the acrylic, and then I'm using binder clips on the rails to hold the acrylic at the right height.
So what do you cut the acrylic with? Is that laser cut, or do you use just a tool?
Wouldn't be able to laser cut it because it's clear. The laser just goes right through it.
Oh, okay.
So I actually just had to hand cut all that. But once you get it scribed, like you can just smack it and snap it.
Okay, interesting. Now so there's always been the concept of like so shadow boxes are cool, really cool. And I remember seeing once when I was a kid, somebody had done a chess board that's just a shadow box. And I remember thinking that was brilliant for like, you know, if you're in an apartment and you got roommates or something, you can have this ongoing game of chess that just hangs on the wall.
That rack, I think, is a nail polish rack that I got on Amazon.
Oh, yeah.
That is all built minis and primed, but not quite painted yet. So that, like, as I build kill teams and stuff, I put them on there.
Oh, that's cool. I do like that. We have like the giant
they were super cheap too.
Like Costco like metal
shelves,
big
right?
shelves that are full of things, but we actually get these little we get these boxes from Hobby Lobby. I'll actually grab one so you guys can take a look at it. Grab it here.
I'm gonna share some more of your stuff here, Rob, because it's cool. And it's interesting because I feel like hobby organizing is one of the hardest parts. Probably causes a lot of spousal aggro.
I'm a little OCD about it. Yeah.
Yeah, you're very, very coordinated.
No, it seems like it's like you can purchase things much faster than you can paint and account for their storage.
Oh,
yeah.
One of those clear acrylic boxes. Yeah, that's part of the Kickstarter.
Yeah. So we got these from Hobby Lobby, and we just we put a metal plate at the bottom of them. Spray paint it black, so that way it, sorry, I'm trying to adjust my thing here. So it just holds.
That's awesome.
I mean, they have multiple sizes, so we just have magnets at the bottom.
Does the top like slide out?
It doesn't slide. It has a little tab. Here it is.
Oh, okay, cool.
It lifts off.
That's like one of those old tester car display cases.
Yeah, that's basically the area you get it from at Hobby Lobby. So
cool.
Yeah, that's what we've been using, and it kind of breaks up the number of minis that he hands me off to paint. So
that would be like the perfect size for a kill team too.
Yeah.
Like you can have your orc kill team and just like stack up all your different kill teams and have them on display.
Yeah, that'd be really cool, actually.
Yeah, no, that seems exactly right. Do you have a lot of like unbuilt stuff, like the pile of shame that?
Oh, yeah, I'm not even showing my pile of shame.
We have a closet of shame.
It's much too shameful.
Yeah, I'll just say I've got Grey Knights, Sisters, Inquisition, Death Watch, and then some Astra Militarum. But that's also part of my Inquisition force that I built.
Yeah, they sort of.
I was both happy that they did the Inquisition army, but also really pissed off.
Only person who liked the Inquisition. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they Death Watch, and then they ended up bringing the Death Watch right back, which I was like, I kind of think that this is what was going to happen to begin with.
So who's this fine fella here?
Yep.
Oh, that is a 200% scaled up Marta Punk Girl Death Watch Watchmaster. I modeled the arm, the silver arm, and pauldron.
Gosh, he says that's a cipher arm type of thing.
It's called a clavus. They use it to lock parts of the watch fortress. That's what the prongs are that are coming out of it. They're basically like keys. And then the code that you plug in is on the arm. You actually rotate that around like a cylindrical lock.
So I was waiting for you to tell me like it actually functions.
No. I could go back into Blender and like model each one separately. It does spin, but no. I did the little shin bit. There's people on Instagram that buy that shin bit and put it on their guide.
Okay.
And then Yeah, everything else is Marta Punk Girl. I'm on her Patreon. I'm actually a vendor for her stuff.
Wow.
She does amazing models. She does a lot of female Space Marine stuff that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like you could field an entire army of female Space Marines with like every type of unit in the Space Marines. She's that dedicated.
Oh, here's like another close-up shot.
You have to adjust this.
No, I love the larger scales. Kind of interesting to me. It was kind of fun to me, but I think it's just more because I just remember being a kid playing with toys that size.
Yeah,
but
I want to print one that's 4X scale. So it'd be like, because when I went to the cafe, the Games Workshop cafe in LA, they had one of those huge Space Marines, and it was all painted up, and it just looked amazing. I would love to print something not quite that big because I don't have the space for it, but I think 4X scale would be really cool. Like use a bigger paintbrush to do details and stuff. It'd be a very different feeling.
Like I keep trying to come up with an excuse to get those with the Joy Toy, Joy Toy Marines and repaint them and just do something that could justify having done that because they're not cheap, but they're really cool.
Yeah, I did collect some of the Dark Tide models, and I got a couple of the Joy Toy, but I just didn't like them as much. I don't like the paint jobs on them. I'll probably have to go back and repaint them as Death Watch.
No, you go back and repaint them, of course.
Yeah.
Clearly. It looks like, did you make this one as well? The rocket pods there?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, because there are people that are selling those for like 10 to 15 bucks a pop for a single Cyclone missile launcher on eBay. So I was like, F that. I'm going to make my own. So now I can print them all like however many I want.
So how long did that take you? Like just modeling that little guy?
It could have gone quickly, but I was using a micrometer and trying to get it exactly the same dimensions as the actual Games Workshop part. So when you paint it up, nobody be able to tell.
Right.
So I like doing that just to be sneaky.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, being able to
because when they brought that tournament thing out, and they were like, "Well, if you model your own stuff, it's okay, but something like a Cyclone missile launcher, they might be like, wait a minute, that's a 3D printed part from blah blah blah." So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna make it totally.
Yeah, like they just can't recognize where it's from. Ooh, these guys are cool.
Yeah, those are Soul Haunters. There was a guy that has Soul Haunter as his army, and he wanted custom.
Oh.
So I did a bunch of different variants. Soul Haunters are pretty badass, but they are chaos, so they're heretics.
So we hate them.
And so you must burn them.
Yeah, purge the unclean.
So here was the we were talking about this before the show, the artwork that inspired you to make this sweet model.
Yep, Black Dragon. That's actually a Tortuga Bay body because I was on their Patreon for a bit. But I made the pauldron and the arms because I really loved those power claws. And the story behind the Black Dragons is they've got a mutation where they have bony growths and stuff that come shooting out everywhere.
Oh, must be a nightmare for finding shoes.
Yeah, so my headcanon is when they get that bad, then they go, okay, we're going to tithe you to the Death Watch. And then the Death Watch will make you part of a special kill team that only comes out to play when they got to go murder stuff, and then they go back into hiding.
I mean,
because the Inquisition would frown on people with like that level of mutation.
Well, yeah.
but because the Death Watch
doesn't know about.
Yeah. As far as I can tell, like the amount they frown upon you is just inversely proportional to how useful your mutation is to the Imperium.
Yeah, and I actually modeled in my Intercession squad one of those guys too. I don't know if you'll be able to see the details on him, but he's got like, yeah, this camera sucks. He's got a sharp like fingernail and a bony growth like coming out of his arm. I used I actually used, God, what are the big brawler heavy guys in Necromunda?
Oh, the Goliaths.
I actually used a Goliath arm for that, and then I put the spike through it. And then he's got like from the Skulls pack, he's got like a demon skull in the back. A bunch of other trophies. I used the arm bolter from the Blood Angel jump pack guys, the Assault Marines. So I love putting those on the Assault Intercessors too.
Those are pretty cool.
It's like a bolt pistol, but I like my bolt pistols to look really fancy rather than just like the standard blah bolt pistol.
Patty says, I really want to figure out 3D sculpting, but it's hard enough making games by myself with the writing, art, testing, and layout while being a family man and full time as it is.
I feel you there.
Everybody's got a side hustle these days, it seems, even if you're doing fine. But
indies that do everything themselves just kind of blow my mind because it's a lot of work. Like I spent a while learning FL Studio, and I took music classes with Ill Gates. He had this thing called Producer Dojo, and I learned the basics of like music production and making music. So I have like my own SoundCloud that I was experimenting with back then.
Oh, wow. So how do you like manage doing like having so many skill sets, right? Because you know, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, and you're like, well, if somebody talks to you about making some custom pauldrons, but then you're also looking at some laser printing, or you're also helping play test for someone, like how do you manage that?
Well, I got my usual 9 to 5, like get the kids up, get them off to school, work. Maybe over lunch, I'll squeeze some stuff in. And then once the kids are home from school, it's kind of like ping pong. I'm just like bouncing around, playing with them, doing family stuff. But then also like once they're off to bed, like I'll sometimes put an extra couple hours there or two.
So it's the lack of sleep. That's what I just heard.
Yeah. Sometimes I gotta like shut everything down and then just crash because you gotta catch up after a while. But
at some point.
Yeah, I feel you.
Frequently my projects will be like whatever takes highest priority, like something new and interesting will pop up, or there's an immediate need, like, oh god, my dishwasher went out. It's like, okay, well now I got to learn how to install a dishwasher. And then of course you find like the horrors of how the person previously
did it.
Installed it.
There's so much conversation we've had about that. Like, oh, well, something broke. So now before you can fix it, you now have to fix what the previous person did to install it first. Before you can then put in the thing.
Yeah, my drain line was literally a garden hose, I found out. And it was
my God.
It was completely kinked in half. That's what the problem was. So I'm always doing stuff like that too. I'm heavy into DIY and learning new skills. And my dad taught me, he was basically like, well, you could spend hundreds of dollars or even thousands of dollars paying someone else to do it, or you could take some of your time, watch some videos, read some books, learn how to do it yourself, and then be able to save yourself that money for the rest of your life. So that's been just kind of my mantra, whether it's game design or art or whatever, motorcycles, working on cars. So yeah, braided hose for real. or solid pipe. Yeah, I work from home. I've got it full remote.
Like, so that saves some time for sure. No commuting.
Yeah, after the pandemic, the game industry heavily shifted to work from home. A lot of companies, though, are trying to get people back into the office and not offering remote jobs. So it's kind of a weird time in the industry. Like there's a lot of people that want to stay remote. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of companies that are offering remote, but there's also a lot of people looking for jobs. So it can be extremely competitive. So luckily I'm at like senior level. So there's less competition where I'm at, but yeah.
I think working remote is a mixed bag. I think maybe 10 to 20% of the workforce is actually motivated enough to be productive working from home. Absolutely. And I think the other like 80% probably should be in the office because they'll get sidetracked real easy.
Yep. Yeah, I do miss the camaraderie, being able to walk over and like bounce ideas off each other, go to a breakout room and like get on the whiteboard and do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as a parent, like it is so much nicer having the flexibility to like flex my time throughout the day and on weekends.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that makes a lot of sense for sure. Have you seen a lot of in the game design world, have you seen a lot of influence from like AI and sort of the generative stuff coming in to try and, you know, generate quest text or create textures? Like, has that been a big threat yet?
I'm sure it's lurking around the corner. So in RPGs, as a designer, I think it would be amazing if I could write dialogue and just have it generated like the VO. The problem with that is if you've got contracts with the Voice Actors Guild, SAG, You can't do that. You have to use their voice actors. You have to pay like
Oh yeah.
by the line or whatever,
Mhm.
and it's you're locked in that contract. If you deviate from that, they abandon you. So they're kind of stuck right now, unless you're an indie.
No, it's the same in the, like, we've kind of messed with that in film industry, is you're either all SAG, or anybody who's part of SAG that wants to work with you is like treading a fine line. You know, it's like, I kind of hope your project doesn't get too big, because then SAG will get mad at me as an actor. And so it's like,
can't burn that bridge.
Yeah.
But on the art side, it's legally dangerous. There have been companies that got caught using AI generated stuff, and people recognize pieces of their artwork or their overall pieces in concept art, not even the actual game. It was in concept art, and people were going to have lawsuits and stuff. So that is going to be interesting to see how that evolves on the art side. And that's the problem with AI generation right now, is it's all pulled from the internet. It's not sequestered off and like, hey, this is all open source stuff. It's safe to use. It's sanitized. The industry has all put their work in to help generate this collection of AI assets. So that's very dangerous right now.
I've seen a lot of AI models, like people building LoRa's and stuff like that, that are almost, I don't know, second generational almost, where it's like they've taken almost like a ton of Midjourney images of something and then built a LoRa based on that.
That's
and then so it's like,
paper. But I'm not sure how many people are doing that. If they're doing it, they're probably not being very like open mouthed about it to their employers, because the employer would then freak out. So yeah, I think modeling is probably where it would go first. Terrain generation, probably from real world maps.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I know for a fact there's people using ChatGPT to generate code, which is probably a little bit perilous too if you have the wrong code in your but
I feel like it's 90% awesome and 10%, oh my God, there's a bug and I don't know where it is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I would shy away from that. But I do know for a fact that there are some engineers that are playing around with that, because it's just quick to do something simple. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, but it's going to evolve rapidly once it does.
I've been playing around with a few different programs over the last week of certain amounts of AI 3D generation, where you can take a concept art and it'll actually build it into a 3D model. And they're an interesting kind of, you kind of got there a little bit. You know what I mean? Like some of them turn out pretty well, where you're like, oh, it's pretty good, but you can't rely on it, because half the time you're like, it's a good starting place. I could pull this into 3D Studio Max or Blender or something and work with this, but there's no way I could put this out as a 3D model.
Yeah, as long as you're not having to like retopo everything and fix all the verts and do that mess, because that could be time consuming too. Like I've downloaded people's 3D models before and then put it into Blender and looked at it and been like, oh my God. No wonder this isn't printing. You've got all this like
this is not a manifold model.
Yeah, not manifold at all. But
well, there's an interesting what is it? There are retopo tools, because I've seen a lot of, in fact, for years I've messed around with photogrammetry, and that is like crazy topography. And so there are some retopo tools that you can kind of use to get started, but I do think ultimately you still have to pull things into your modeling program and just do cleanup. No matter what you do.
Depending on what it is, though, you could spend more time playing around with the AI generation, getting that right, versus just manually ripping out a model real quick. If it's something simple like furniture props or something, it's like, why bother when you could have this thing modeled in like an hour?
I've seen some character design. It's interesting because some of the programs, like in a pinch, I think they're actually really useful, almost for placeholder models in a way. Because I've seen some models where you have Midjourney design this like kind of the what do you call it, the concept art for it, and then you can pull it into this program. You can even have them take the model that it's looking at and rebuild it into a T pose or an A pose. And you know what I mean? And it's like, it's kind of a quick turnaround. It's still not what I would call production level. Like
Yeah.
if you released a game with that, it would be like, it's kind of sloppy, but
Yeah.
it's surprising how far it gets, like 80% there.
But if
So
you're
like it's interesting because it even does the textures too.
Yeah, it'd be useful if you're doing like a pitch for a company to get funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not going to be showing them the nitty gritty of like what your models look like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Like,
going to be like, hey, it runs, it's performant, it has the gameplay that we're looking for. We just need the money and time to.
and it roughly kind of looks like what we want it to be. It kind of has that style.
Yeah, Paul was talking about voice actors, and when I was working at Obsidian on Outer Worlds, they actually had VO generation that was computerized that sounded almost believable. It was really, really cool. So what I think will end up happening is the Voice Actors Guild will have actors record like their voice imprint, all the different tonalities and everything, to generate a package that then you could plug into an AI tool to like do text to speech, and they would still get their money because they're whatever voice actor, but they wouldn't have to do the acting. They could just like pull in paychecks from all these projects. I think that would probably be one of the directions they might go.
I think it's one of the directions they're going to end up having to go, even though I think SAG, like being familiar with them for years, I think they fight against it. But I think inevitability will be the crowbar that kind of like puts them in shape.
Yeah. Because man, those recording sessions are brutal. It takes days, if not weeks. And I can't imagine that they would, if they could just like hand off a digital asset and be like, I own this, it's licensed. SAG gets their cut, the actor gets their cut, and they can do many more projects and not be wrecking their voice like sitting in a booth. I'd go for that.
I can only imagine, because in Darktide, the voice for my character, the one I picked, was the angry Keanu Reeves voice.
Yeah, some of them are little. Yeah, the screechy psyker guy has some pretty cringe VO, and I wish he had more variety. Whereas like the soldier will be like for the emperor and all that stuff. I wish he had more to say than just "I will survive." It's like, come on, man.
My character's a really big fan of the rattlings.
Yeah. He does have a good line if you're fighting the big Nurgle demon. I did catch a line one time where he was like, "Stop being so delicious."
Wow.
The first time that I heard that, like over years of playing the game, I was like, oh, okay, that was worth it. And then the new character, Commissar, the new Commissar.
Oh yeah, the Russian.
Yeah, I don't like that voice.
Oh,
it's so fake, but
it feels very forced.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
This is coming from someone who's done a Khador accent.
Yeah,
for years.
I know. It's like sounds like me, so I'm probably not very good. But well, we've already reached our time. Rob, this was super fun. We have to do this again. But before I end, I do want to share some of the progress pictures that people posted on my Facebook. So as part of the live show, and I never advertised it, so sorry. But if you want to share like any of your painting progress, you can post that on my Facebook in reply to me advertising the live show. And so we've got the first one here from Dexter Hyde. He's very amazing terrain painter. So here's a couple of his, presumably part of his winter theme. Got a nice helicopter shot of the terrain there.
Week after week, we've been catching more updates on this cool like winter theme.
I know.
Like this looks cool.
Yeah, and then I think here's the second shot of it too. So you can see the modular terrain on the, we've got the footprints and then the parapets that he's up on. So it just really sells that look. Very beautifully done.
That's really neat. I like that.
Jerry's pile of shame. Now everybody knows.
I empathize with that situation. Oh my gosh, there's like Dungeons and Dragons OG dragons in there.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of like an I Spy game. Wow. So like you got
I kind of dig the little Kachina doll like hanging out in the back.
Yeah, this is awesome. Oh man, those blister packs. So many blister packs were used for like paint palettes. We have those plates, I'm pretty sure. Jerry, I feel you. And then our next one here, we've got JP, got rockets, painting a whatever this model is. JP, what is this?
Looks like it's a lady troll.
Oh.
Really, a D&D ice troll, maybe.
Yeah, maybe so. Good highlight work though. Those blues really pop on there. All work in progress.
I love the crazy long thumb on that hand. It reminds me of I think we were talking about last week the Meg from Legend, the troll. Mucklebones. What's her name? Meg Mucklebones.
Meg. Oh, was it Meg? Yeah. Yeah, the one that was played by Robert Picardo.
Yeah, just it reminds me of those crazy long fingered hands.
Yeah, that's right. Cool. And then that's me. So there you go. That's the extent of pictures shared today. Ice Troll by WizKids. So, oh, it is complete. Okay. There you go. So thank you all for sharing. Yes, Meg Mucklebones. So, Robert, thank you again so much for sharing. So you can follow Robert on his Instagram at Hunting Heresy, right?
Yep.
Okay, and
YouTube and pretty much Twitch, all of that.
And Darktide, apparently.
Oh yeah, Darktide, Steam, yep.
So I will have to find you on Steam. We can all play some Darktide together. Yep. Maybe knock off that Rust again. So no, we'll have to have you back on. I love talking about like the game design. I wish we did not talk as much about like the 3D storage organization stuff, but those are really nice options to have for people because obviously like miniatures is a very expensive hobby, you know?
Yeah, and keeping stuff organized and off your table so you actually have space to work. That's been an ongoing battle for me. So that's part of what led to these paint racks and stuff like behind me.
No, I'm sure.
I've got one that'll do army painter droppers, and it'll fit 100 on one 12x12 thing.
Oh wow, that's great. Big.
Yeah, I took it to Adepticon and was like, oh yeah, this is super convenient. I've got all my colors.
That's amazing.
Yep.
No, that's awesome, dude. So thank you so much again for joining us and agreeing to be on the stream. And we're gonna outro here. That's a few minutes. So anybody who still has questions or anything in the chat, I'll be responding to you in the chat. And then yeah, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. I've also got some announcements coming up. I'm working on a giveaway once I figure out how to do the rules that are in line with YouTube's policies. But our next stream will be on March 5th. Already.
That's right. We were going to let people know we're doing a giveaway for the Krieg box set.
Yes. So my local game store, Tavern of Souls, Luis was nice enough to hook me up with a giveaway box of the entire Krieg box set, which is mighty.
Which is what, 8 pounds of plastic, something like that?
Yeah, it has the codex in it.
Oh, okay.
That's already out of date, whatever. But it's about an 8-pound box. So I was also working out shipping and what that would cost. So I'm working that out. But anyway, look forward to that. And otherwise, yeah, we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. But be looking out on my channel and my social medias for that update. So
cool.
All right, let's end here and play out. Cover me. All right, guys, this is it. Copy that. Barry.
What's wrong with this place? I'm in the west corridor. I'm right outside the generator room. I'm out of bullets. success.